Hello everyone. It is now time for Storytime Sunday.
We finished our shopping. We finished our Tim Hortons. Well, we just got our Tim Hortons. So now we're going to tell a story as usual Storytime Sundays go.
Yes.
Want to know what the story's about?
When we had our baby girl.
Labor and delivery.
Oh, I may have been covering the mic because I'm good at that.
Classic Mrs. Sass. We are talking about the labor and delivery of our baby girl.
Yep. So, I was 41 weeks, 2 days when they said, come on in, we're gonna induce you. And I was like, okay, I'm ready. And at this point, I figured we would have already had her. I didn't think I would actually go late. So, James took 3 weeks off of work, but the first week was she didn't even come yet, and we're like, excuse me. We're like, uh-oh, like what if she comes when you're already back to work? So, yeah, we go into the hospital, we get there for 11, and they're like, we're really busy in the pregnancy ward right now, the labor ward. So just like go down, grab some lunch, maybe go for a walk for an hour and then come back. So we were like, okay, fine. So we go down to the Tim Hortons there, we get something to eat, we get a drink, we're just chilling there, and James looks at me and he says, don't die while giving birth to my baby.
So of course, we're watching a lot of Grey's Anatomy. We just watch, a lot of those doctor shows. We find them fun. And like one of the episodes we just recently watched, like the wife died giving birth. So I thought it'd be kind of funny to say that to her, then I realized I was like, oh, that's like a really morbid thing to say.
Yeah, baby.
I'm rude.
So then an hour passes, we're like, okay, let's go back upstairs. So we go upstairs and they're like, okay, we just have to wait for the doctor to check you, see if you're dilated at all. If you are, we're going to induce you with Pitocin, which is an IV they put into you and pump some drugs into you, And they said, if not, we're going to give you either a pill or a gel to kind of get things going. So I'm like, okay. So we get up there and she's checking me and she's like, okay, you're about a 2. And she's like, oh, you're about a 3. And I'm like, 2 or 3. And I'm like, oh, awesome. Okay, good. So things are obviously going to happen today.
Was this before or after the nurse?
This was during. So then the nurse, she has to give me blood work, okay? And she puts the needle in, everything's good. I'm like, okay. And then as she takes it out, do your impression.
She the needle's in her arm and she rips out like this.
And she just
like
stays
a ninja.
in this pose.
And she stays in this pose. And I'm like, whoa, it's like you pulled out like a ninja or something.
I just looked at James like, what just happened here?
I'm like,
we have a fussy girl. Does she have her bubbas?
I don't know.
So after this crazy lady lawnmowers the needle out of my arm, they're like, okay, we'll start you on Pitocin soon. It's just really busy. Give us a little bit. So we're like, okay. So this is probably...
I just want to say, I mentioned to the next nurse to come in that she pulled it out like it was a lawnmower. And, lawnmower pull start thing. Yanked a whole lawnmower out of her.
So we probably got into our private room at 4 o'clock. So all this time has passed, they're super busy, so they're like, so sorry, but you have to wait, and I'm like, no problem. So we get in the room about 4, come 6 o'clock, they break my water, and that was fine and dandy. And then yeah, James brought up to the nurse, he's like, so that first nurse, and then we said her name, and she's like, oh, she's our best nurse, she wins awards every year for being such a good nurse, and blah blah blah. And we're like, yeah, she's good, she just,
she did this weird ninja thing.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, well, if she did that, she probably did it for a reason. But I was just like, I've donated blood and taken lots of needles with drugs.
Never have.
Drugs with needles, that's the one.
Whoa.
No, I don't. God. And, but it was just kind of strange to see. You don't see it ever. So yeah.
so then they broke my water. Then by like 7 o'clock, so an hour later, they're like, okay, we're gonna start you on the Pitocin. And I'm like, alright. So they bring me into my delivery room and they start me on the Pitocin, and I was fine. I'm like, okay, it's all good. Like, I'm having minor contractions. Like, it just feels like little period cramps, and I'm just like, okay. And then it was like all of a sudden they hit me hard, like hard, and I was like, oh my god, this is insane. Like, they're like, do you want a popsicle or anything? I was like, yeah, I'd love one. I couldn't even eat the popsicle because every time I'd go to eat it, I would get a contraction, so I'd just be like, oh.
I know, she freaking wasted it.
I did. I'm sorry, hospital, but so yeah, they started coming, like, it was probably like 10 o'clock, I want to say, and like they were coming like every minute, and I'm
I
like,
felt so bad.
Oh
like,
my god.
She was obviously in so much pain, but there was just like nothing I could do.
Mm-hmm.
I held her hand,
and the nurse, she didn't leave the room. She just kept staying in there, moving the monitors around, and I'm like, And she's like, oh, like the monitors aren't working correctly, like they're not picking up your contractions. And I'm like, oh, okay. So every time I would contract, she would have a contraction, she would feel my belly, and she's like, you know, your contractions aren't really, like, they're supposed to make your belly super hard, and mine were just kind of like, I don't know, I was feeling it bad, but my stomach was not
flexing.
So yeah, so then the nurse like stayed in the room the whole time. She just kept checking everything. Then come like 11 o'clock, she's like, baby's misbehaving, like I'm just gonna go get the doctor. Or she paged the doctor and was like, I'm gonna send you the strip of the baby's heartbeat. And I'm like, uh-oh. And she sent it, and then the doctor came in, and she was like looking at the monitor, and like literally the nurse never left my side. She stayed in the room the whole time. She left for a break and had another nurse come in and sit with me and keep watching the monitor to make sure everything was okay. And by this point, I'm like, okay, something's obviously going on, and they don't want to freak me out, which is cool, but like I obviously know something's going on, because you're not supposed to be in here the whole time. You're supposed to come in and keep checking on me because there's other patients everywhere. So where am I at?
Eventually the nurse comes in, and they put the possibility of you know, we may have to give you a C-section. But then it goes from like talking about, okay, you may need to get a C-section, to okay, you need to have a C-section now.
Yeah, they were like, so I think your best option is that you have a C-section. And in my head, I'm like, oh my god, this is not what I wanted. Like, obviously, if I have to do it to get her out, I'm going to do it, but it's not what I had in my birth plan. So I'm like, oh my god. And I'm like, okay. She's like, I'm gonna come back, I'm gonna have some forms for you to sign. Oh wait, I totally forgot about the epidural. So before I was told I had to have a C-section, I had an epidural, and man, was that amazing. Oh my god, I didn't even feel it when they did it.
It was amazing for her, but we had to leave the room so no one could be in there with her. And we're standing out there for like 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It was a long time, right? And I'm thinking, is everything okay? Did something go wrong? Like, what's happening? No one's telling us anything. So then we finally go over and check, and they're like, oh yeah, they just finished up. You can go in. And I go in there, and she's like, yeah, what's up?
I was like, hey guys, like I felt great again. I had no pain. It was awesome. Like, I thought with the epidural I wouldn't be able to like feel anything, but I could feel stuff. I could move my legs. I just didn't have any contraction pain, so it's like awesome. But then I think that's when everything started to go wrong. Like, they were in there the whole time anyway, but then after my epidural, they like were just watching the monitor. And so yeah, then they're like, you need a C-section. The doctor came in with the papers, and she's like, you need to sign these, like blah 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 blah, saying everything that can happen. And I'm like, okay. So I signed the papers. The doctor leaves the room, and I start bawling. Like I was okay until he started walking up to me, and I was like, oh my god, like I can't believe I have to do this. I'm about to go for major surgery. What is going on? I'm so scared.
Minor surgery.
Shut up, it's major surgery. And
I tease her about surgery.
yeah, he does, and it makes me have to punch him in the forehead. So yeah, they tell him like he needs to put on the hat and suit.
And I put it on inside out.
Mask, and he put it on inside out. And they start prepping me, and I'm like, oh my god. So then they're like, okay, so we're gonna bring you into the room, get everything set up. Your husband has to stay out of the room, and then we're going to bring him in. And I'm like, okay, no problem. So they bring me in, they strap my legs down, and I'm like, what is going on? And then they left my arms free, which I was happy about. Apparently, what do they call it? It's a different type of C-section when they, there's a name for it, when they don't, no, when they don't strap your arms so that, I'm totally blanking on what it's called. But anyway. Sometimes they strap your arms, sometimes they don't, and they didn't for me, which I was happy about. But I was shaking so much from the epidural. Like, nerves, of course, too, but the epidural, just like, I couldn't stop shaking. I wasn't cold, but I was just like, So they're getting everything ready. The doctor comes in, he's like, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm okay. So they start, like, putting up the thing, so I can't see anything, no one can see anything, and they start giving me a bit more epidural so that I don't feel anything, and I couldn't feel my legs, I couldn't move them, and then all of a sudden I feel someone cutting me open, and I'm like, stop, 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 I can feel that, and the doctor's like, you're gonna feel some uncomfortableness, and I'm like, no, I feel you cutting me open, I felt my skin, like, yeah, I felt you cutting me open, no, you need to stop. And then in my head, I'm like, why are you even starting to cut me when my husband's not even in the room? What are you doing? I want him here. Like, I'm scared. Give me my husband.
That's right.
So,
So, I'm sitting just outside the room this whole time. And I'm like, what's happening? What's going on? Like,
yeah, he was out there for, again, like another half an hour to 45 minutes. Like, I get it takes a while to prep everything. But once I'm prepped, like, I want him in there. I want him near me, and
I just started thinking, I'm like, wow, I said don't die on the table, and now I'm sitting out here for this whole time. I don't know if there's like some type of difficulties going on or something, whatever's happening. I'm just sitting there, and it feels like it's taking forever. I can't even stare at my phone because you're so deep in the hospital, there's no reception. Like, I just sat there and I just stared into blank space, hoping something was going to happen.
So yeah, and then they brought him in, and I'm like, oh, finally. And
but when I go in there, she's like literally like, and I'm like, oh my god, like I wasn't sure if like something was wrong because she was like violently shaking on the table pretty much, and I was like, is everything okay? Are you okay? And she's like, oh yeah, I'm fine. And then she'd stop shaking for a second, and then she's really.
And then he'd bring it up. He's like, oh, you stopped shaking, and start shaking again.
I did?
Like, oh my god. So yeah, and then I felt like I was laying there for like half an hour, and then all I hear is, oh my god, she has a big head, and I'm like,
rude.
I'm like, oh, okay, and then they got her out, and I heard her cry, and I started bawling. I was like, oh my god, my baby is here, I'm so happy. So at first, before they got her out, they're like, okay, the doctor has to push on your belly to help get the baby out, and I'm like, okay. So they're like, it may be a little bit uncomfortable, so they're like putting like all of their weight on my stomach trying to get her out. I'm like, oh my god, oh my god. So then they get her out. They show her to us as they're passing to like clean her off, and hair like no tomorrow. She had so much hair, and I'm just like, oh my god. He thought it was like gunk.
I thought she was like covered in something because there was just so much of it. I was like, what is she covered in?
Oh man. And then yeah, I just couldn't stop crying. I was so happy. I'm like, I can't believe like this just happened. Like, we just had a baby. Holy crap. It's crazy, and now we're parents.
But the whole experience, it was totally worth it. Like, I loved every second. Now we have that beautiful little baby girl, and I'm a happy dad.
Right?
She's a happy mom. She's a happy baby. Things... surprise! Things went successfully, and she's happy and healthy. Except she's teething. And she's been sad.
Her poor little teeth, they're coming out more, and she's getting more and more and upset. More and more and upset. I don't know how to talk.
We both are not speaking
good
as
talkers.
good
We are.
as good as we will.
So yeah, she's here. She's 8 months now.
How heavy was she?
She was 7 pounds, 14 ounces, and she was born at 1:16 a.m.
And one of the first things they ever did with her was put her on the table and weighed her with her butt in the air. And I thought it was funny, but I was like, that doesn't look very comfy. Should you be doing that?
Yeah, they were like, okay, like they came in so often to come and like check her heart rate, check me, make sure everything's good, check my scar, and oh my god, I need to talk about when they got me to stand up. Whew.
Oh my god, tell that little part.
Yeah, so the nurse comes in the room. At first I didn't like this nurse. Once we left the hospital, I liked her. Because I didn't have to see her. No, I'm kidding. She was better towards the end.
We realized they were being extremely overworked. They were very understaffed.
Like, they had so many deliveries the day that I gave birth as well. So they were just super busy. And she came in and she was like, okay, I need to get you up. You need to start walking and go to the bathroom. And I'm like, okay. So mind you, they didn't give me anything for pain at this point. Like, they had little morphine pills that they gave me after they got me up, but for the first initial getting me to stand up, like, it hurt so bad. Like, she was like, no, we can't help her stand up, she has to stand up on her own, you can use your IV pole to stand up. And I'm like, oh my god. So I'm trying to like sit up, which killed, and then like turn to get my feet off the bed and then stand up. And when I stood up, it hurt so bad that I started bawling again. And she's like, stop crying, you're gonna pass out, open your eyes. And I'm like, oh my god, like, how are you treating me like this right now? I was so pissed. And then yeah, I got up and it was okay. I went to the bathroom, I cleaned myself up, and then she gave me a morphine pill, and I felt great after that. I could get up, I could walk around a little bit, then we started going for little walks around the hospital.
What about the other part?
Which? Oh yeah, she was like, I forget what she asked me, but she asked me a question like, oh, did you feed baby recently? Or, oh, did you do this recently? Something.
What about the other part?
What?
She just came in, and it was like, just so nonchalantly grabbed a pill.
She's like, oh, I need to put this up your butt.
Didn't buy her dinner, didn't do anything, just jammed it right up there.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
Surprise! But yeah, at the end of the day, that nurse, she did a really good job. We ended up really liking her. She's very attentive. And
we had her the next day. What's wrong, baby?
She's pissed. Let's wrap this thing up. Baby Sass is getting angry. So we're gonna give her Mrs. Sass's phone case.
So that's the story of our labor and delivery, and it was scary and exciting and a whole bunch of feelings all in one, and I'm just happy that we're both healthy and happy, and she's here.
And she didn't die.
She's growing like a
And I
weed.
changed my first diaper.
Yeah, he changed her first diaper ever, and that was his first diaper ever.
And
change.
What was funny is while I was changing one of her diapers,
first one.
the first diaper I'm ever changing, I clean her up, and then there was a little bit of poo in there, so I was like, okay, I cleaned her, and then all of a sudden I have the diaper down, and she starts pooing again, and I'm like, and I started like overflowing, starts overflowing in the diaper. I'm like, oh my god, what do I do? And I just like start catching it with the little napkin thing or the wipe. I'm like, ah! It was scary.
It was so funny. Oh my god. So many good memories.
Oh yeah. Many more to come.
Yes.
And that's our Storytime Sunday. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have a birth story, please share it in the comment. We would love, in the comment section, we'd love to read about it. And if you have a video, please link us to it, because I'd love to hear about it there too.
Bye.
Imagine how please get hashtag support Drac Shadow